in the last several possessions, Clint's defense switched on to Barnes was terrific, and obviously, the putback by Sadiq, I think, is emblematic of who he is, right? As a person and as a player. There's a toughness about him, an intelligence. That was a heck of a play.
It's been a joke that it seemed like Bob knew something was coming from Sadiq today, but as far as him, he's talked about not wanting to be a one-trick pony. Just what have you seen from him as he's tried to develop different facets of his game?
The only reason he would ever be considered a one-trick pony is if someone actually asked him if he was that.
I didn't ask him that.
So, I'm saying that, in jest as a segue to, what your question really was, is the things that he's always had, those things in his mind. And that's one of the things we've talked about, just keep, and I've mentioned it to you guys before, there's lots of ways to impact the game. And I think the best thing that he's doing offensively is making really good reads. When he's open, shoot it. In spite of having a cold stretch, he hasn't stopped doing that because he can shoot. That's what I was talking about, his confidence. He's driving the ball, he's on the rim, and even more importantly, because you can rebound and defend whether your shot's going in or not. And oftentimes we can, our effort, our focus on some of those absolutes in the game can be blurred. We're correlated to whether or not we're making a shot or getting a dunk or things like that. And the players that are able to separate that and continue to give that type of effort and focus in those other situations, they help you win games like you did tonight.
And you talked about not judging the ball, whether the ball goes in or not, as whether it's a good shot or a bad shot or anything like that. But with just where you guys were finding those looks with Trey early in the game, with his shot not falling, just what does it say about him taking a step forward as far as just being a leader and all of that?
Yeah, I think that's something that, we talked about. I told him there was a possession in the first half where I felt like he should get more space and attack and get to the rim, as opposed to, taking a tough, contested shot. Sometimes the ball's in his hands at the end of the clock, and that's hard. But I thought he did an excellent job of getting in the lane and having his eyes out. And then when they did play for the pass, he had that stretch where he was making that shot. But there was one time, I think it was JJ in the high quadrant, he just pulled his man in and made a simple play. When they're blitzing him, particularly early in the game, his ability to recognize I'm being blitzed, I need to look for JJ in the roll or throw ahead or whatever the case may be. That's really important to our group, where he allows he allows the game to come to him, I should say. So obviously that was another positive.
And Coach Quin, talk about your active hands tonight, the little things on defense.
Couldn't quite hear you.
Your active hands on defense, active hands, activity tonight,
Yeah.
getting those deflections, interrupting Barnes drives, Trent's drives, making them have multiple efforts on going different actions on the second side, all that good stuff. Staying with the fight for you guys on defense tonight, Coach Quin.
Yeah, I thought we came out with a real focus, and then we went through a stretch where I think in the second quarter they made 6 threes. So I didn't feel like we were rewarded for that as much. Some of them maybe we shifted off the shooter too much, or whatever the case may be, but they got hot. And that lead that we built by being really solid on the defensive end went away. And then really as the game progressed, and we talked about just being solid and fundamental on the defensive end. We did some things that we got burned. We top locked a shooter and it backdoored, and O had to drop, and his man hit a 3. We switched, and Bruce Brown slipped, and those shortcuts, aren't gonna. You may work out, every now and then, but I want to see us be more disciplined than that. And for the most part tonight, I thought we were.
Coach, you talked about your team being connected a lot. A lot of ebbs and flows in this game. How would you rate your team's connectivity tonight?
You know, I think there's been, you know, I mentioned the connectivity and the competitiveness and the unselfishness. I felt like we lived in that space tonight. And there's a number of games where, you know, we've done that of late. And, you know, it hasn't always worked out with the win on the board. I thought, you know, tonight, Miami, Sacramento, you know, the score didn't necessarily reflect that. You know, we didn't have that against Cleveland. You know, we had it tonight. And you're not going to have it every night, but that doesn't mean you can't strive for it. And you may not have it for 48 minutes, but that's part of it. You know, to be able to, you know, to have that type of determination, you know, and perseverance when things aren't going right, to dig in.
Coach, I wanted to go back to Trae Young. He, of course, is coming off of only his second game off concussion protocol. He took 2 charges tonight to foul out Dennis Schroeder. Just talk about his guts and how much that took, and then his continued role in leadership this year.
Yeah, well, you know, Trae, he when he shifts off the ball, he's got great anticipation. You know, and he gets his hands on some balls. And, you know, his activity is really important for us. And, you know, I think he knows he's not going to block a shot. But that's what the charge is. That's a way that he can impact the game defensively. And as you said, I mean, that's been something he's done consistently this year, just giving his body up defensively. And as you said, you know, tonight was huge. You know, it happened in San Antonio. You know, and those are plays we need from him. You know, because again, you know, he's not going to impact the game defensively the way Jalen is. You know, but everybody can do their part and give what they can give. And when I see him take a charge, that's how I see it.
Coach, can you take us through the last 2 possessions of the game? Trae tries to draw the foul, turns it over. Looks like that might cost him the game. And he creates at the other end, and then of course he falls for the.
Yeah, you know, we got that big stop, and you know, one of the things that, you know, at the end of the game right there, it was kind of a loose ball, and a lot of guys were going for the ball, so we weren't spaced. You know, normally if we could get spaced, you know, he could get off that ball, you know, and alleviate the pressure. But in this case, as you said, you know, it was kind of, I'd have to see the tape, but it was a little bit of a scrum, and obviously, you know, they got the steal. And that hurt. That was a deflating play, you know. And then, but you know, to get to the next play, and you know, we put the ball in his hands, and what he did was what we wanted. We wanted him to attack the rim for exactly the reason, you know, that what occurred. You know, is if he can get that ball up in the rim with enough time on the clock, we get a chance to rebound it, and you know, it was going to be hard to block Sadiq out on the play.
Coach, you talked about, of course, Sadiq's impact, especially on that last play. But he had 10 free throws in the game, a lot of second chance opportunities or and ones. How important is that just in the ebbs and flows of the game, especially to stop the Raptors from going on a run or just slowing the game down?
Say the first part of the question again. Sorry. Sometimes I go out there.
Just how was his impact needed, especially in the ebbs and flows of the game, where just slowing the game down, going to the free throw line, second chance points and ones?
Yeah, we had guys play a lot of minutes tonight, you know, and it made sense. You know, we haven't always done that, but given the way the game was, so I think Sadiq's endurance too, and as you mentioned, some of those stops, you know, whether it's to stop a run or start to build a run, you know, gave us a chance to kind of collect ourselves as well. So those were big plays, whether it was the foul line or you know, a rebound. Those things are momentum plays. So.
Coach, kind of looking forward to the week that's ahead. With this being sort of Jalen's first real run through the league, playing like starter kind of minutes, how do you ramp him up for, you know, games against Phoenix and Los Angeles, like where he's really seeing some of these teams with great players for the first time?
Yeah, I don't know that you rev him up. I think he's revved. You know, I think, you know, you saw, can't recall the game recently where, you know, those are some of those matchups that he has are really tough matchups, and you know, you'll go for a shot fake, and when you haven't had that experience, kind of getting to know how you defend a certain player. But he's also been in situations where he hasn't. It's why tonight with Barnes, I thought he did a terrific job on him. There was a couple situations where he was actually adhering to the game plan, and when he spun baseline, there's no one there. I thought there was a couple other situations where he might have called a travel. And Barnes, from the field, he was, I don't know, 8 for 14. But I thought Jalen made everything hard on him, and stayed between him and the basket. So the more he has those types of matchups, I think the more comfortable he's going to get, and the more instinct. He's got really good instincts. So this is part of it, going through the league and seeing some of these things for the first time. It can be hard, but I'm challenging him, and he's stepping up. He'll accept that challenge every time, and do the best job he can, and we got to support him too.
Thanks, Coach.